prayers made and unmade, battles with dates, treaties with clauses, crowns and swords. But that's not the only way time passed. People are hungry now for something else. A history that lives lower to the ground, closer to the soil. Not the story of who ruled, but how people lived. What they ate, where they slept, how they raised children, how they waited out the rain, how they gathered roots when no fruit would grow, how they healed, how they carried grief, and how they passed joy along in stories around the fire. Let's begin where history is often quietest. With the indigenous peoples whose voices were left out of the official records. Not because they didn't have stories, but because they didn't write them down in books or carve them in stone for kings. They stored them in the rhythm of seasons, in the smell of wild honey, in the position of stars, in the ways you speak to elders, or don't speak at all. The Hadzabe of East Africa, for example, have lived much the same way for thousands of years. Their days begin when the birds begin, and they don't count time in hours. They hunt not with guns, but with bows made from the branches they cut, shaped, and strung by hand. They listen more than they talk. They eat together. They laugh, too, at things so small they wouldn't be noticed in a city. A missed arrow. A stubborn tree. A child mimicking a baboon's call. They have no chief. No calendar. No currency. And yet, they have survived. Not by conquering, but by adapting. Watching. Waiting. Remembering. And it's not just Africa. In the highlands of Andean South America, women wove cloth with patterns that told stories. In Southeast Asia, rice paddies reflected the sky, and with every harvest, traditions passed through fingers and feet more than words. In Australia, Aboriginal songlines stitched together the land like invisible maps, guiding people across space through melody, rhythm, and memory. So often we hear about wars and inventions. But what about water jars? Cooking stones? Midwives? What about the everyday? There's a quiet longing, now, in our restless modern world, for those histories. The ones that show not how power was won, but how life was sustained. How women moved in the shadows of palaces. How communities thrived without money or roads or machines. These aren't the loud stories. They won't keep you up. In fact, they do the opposite. They slow your thoughts. They invite your breath to match a slower rhythm. The rhythm of gathering wood at dusk, or chewing tubers under a tree while someone tells a story.
The Datooga women, guardians of tradition, resilience, and identity. Deep in the highlands of northern Tanzania, along the edges of Lake Eyasi and the Great Rift Valley, lives the Datooga tribe, one of the oldest and most culturally rich pastoralist communities in East Africa. While Datooga men are known as warriors and herders, it is the Datooga women who silently and powerfully carry the weight of heritage, family, and survival. To speak of Datooga women is to speak of strength, tradition, and unwavering endurance. Their lives are woven into the land, the cattle, and the sacred stories of their ancestors. 1. Daily life, labor and leadership. Datooga women begin their work before the first light of dawn touches the savanna. Their day is full of vital tasks that keep their households and communities running. Milking cows and goats is one of their primary duties, as dairy is essential to the Datooga diet. They fetch water from distant sources, often walking for miles balancing large gourds or buckets on their heads with grace. Women are also responsible for cooking all meals, tending small farms, building huts, and collecting firewood. While men tend to larger herds and tribal affairs, it's the women who manage the home and often teach younger generations survival skills. There is no job too heavy or task too menial for Datooga women. They move through life with a quiet dignity, often unacknowledged but never less essential. 2. Appearance and beauty traditions. Datooga women express identity, beauty, and status through their distinctive dress and body adornment. Facial scarification, typically around the eyes, is a traditional practice symbolizing beauty and maturity. These marks are etched into the skin during adolescence and carry deep cultural significance. They wear bright beaded jewelry, often handmade, in layered strands around the neck, wrists, ankles, and waist. The beadwork often contains colors and patterns that indicate tribal lineage, marital status, or personal milestones. Their clothes are typically made of leather or cotton and dyed with natural colors, often brown or ochre, blending them into their environment. Women often decorate their hair with red ochre, similar to the himba in Namibia, using it as a symbol of both beauty and protection from the sun. These practices are not just aesthetics, they are cultural storytelling, passed down from mother to daughter for generations. 3. Marriage, family, and womanhood. In Datooga culture, marriage is a vital institution governed by tradition and communal agreement. Young women are often married in their teenage years through arranged marriages, with the groom's family offering a bride price, usually in the form of cattle. Women become co-wives in polygamous households, where they must learn to share resources, responsibilities, and often the same living space. Despite these challenges, women often form strong bonds of sisterhood, helping each other with childcare and daily chore. Motherhood is central to a woman's identity. Having many children is a sign of blessing and prestige. Raising children is not just about survival, it's about passing on language, values, and traditions. The mother is the first teacher, the first storyteller, and the first guide into the Datooga way of life. 4. Spiritual and cultural role. Datooga women are key cultural custodians. They are responsible for performing songs and chants during birth, coming of age, and marriage ceremonies, telling traditional stories by the fire, preserving oral history in a society where written records are rare, preparing herbal medicines and managing rituals related to fertility and harvest seasons. Women play a vital role in ceremonies honoring ancestors and nature spirits, believing that maintaining harmony with the land is the secret to survival. 5. The modern world and emerging change. The Datooga tribe, like many indigenous communities, is facing increasing pressure from modern development, land disputes, climate change, and loss of traditional lands to conservation and tourism. Datooga women today are at a crossroads between tradition and transformation. A growing number of girls are attending school, some becoming nurses, teachers, and activists. NGOs are working to promote women's health, education, and legal rights within the community. Women are beginning to voice their perspectives in local decision-making, particularly on issues like female circumcision, early marriage, and domestic violence. Yet, for many, the desire remains to preserve their culture while adapting to the realities of the modern world. The women are finding ways to blend tradition with progress, often acting as mediators between generations. Final reflection. The story of the Datooga women is one of courage, wisdom, and deep cultural richness. They are the unshakable foundation of their society, holding the knowledge of the past and the hope of the future. Whether carrying water across arid lands or guiding daughters through rites of passage, Datooga women are far more than caretakers, they are guardians of a people's soul. Datooga tribe men, warriors, cattle keepers, and protectors of culture. If the women of the Datooga tribe are the heart of the household, the men are its shield and legacy bearers. The Datooga men are traditionally pastoralists, blacksmiths, and warriors, known for their strength, resilience, and deeply rooted connection to cattle and the land. 1. Warriors and cattle herders. Datooga men are best known for their role as guardians of cattle, which are not only a source of food but also a symbol of wealth, marriage value, and spiritual significance. Boys are trained from an early age to herd animals, defend them from predators, and navigate the land. Men must defend the community against threats, both human and wild, so warrior training and skills in using traditional weapons like spears and clubs are highly valued. Cattle raiding used to be a traditional practice, especially in disputes with neighboring tribes such as the Hadzabe or Maasai. 2. Traditional blacksmiths. Many Datooga men are highly skilled blacksmiths, crafting knives, spear tips, arrowheads, and ornaments. They often trade tools with neighboring tribes like the Hadzabe in exchange for meat or honey. 3. Storytellers and spiritual leaders. Elders, especially men, hold the tribe's oral history and spiritual knowledge. They are responsible for conducting ancestral rituals, blessing ceremonies, and enforcing community laws. Traditional healers, often older men, prepare medicines and offer spiritual guidance. The Datooga women, guardians of tradition, resilience, and identity. Deep in the highlands of northern Tanzania, along the edges of Lake Eyasi and the Great Rift Valley, lives the Datooga tribe, one of the oldest and most culturally rich pastoralist communities in East Africa. While Datooga men are known as warriors and herders, it is the Datooga women
gathered, and listened to the world before the world became so noisy. History, for a long time, was told from the top down. Kings, generals, conquerors. Maps redrawn. Empires made and unmade. Battles with dates. Treaties with clauses. Crowns and swords. But that's not the only way time passed. People are hungry now for something else. A history that lives lower to the ground. Closer to the soil. Not the story of who ruled, but how people lived. What they ate. Where they slept. How they raised children. How they waited out the rain. How they gathered roots when no fruit would grow. How they healed. How they carried grief, and how they passed joy along in stories around the fire. Let's begin where history is often quietest. With the indigenous peoples whose voices were left out of the official records. Not because they didn't have stories, but because they didn't write them down in books or